I would like to begin by acknowledging our MC, our host, the CEO of the Indigenous Advisory Practitioners Association of Zimbabwe, Sharon, Zimbabwe Chamber of SMEs. I consider this a great honor to be standing before you this morning. Let me also acknowledge a few familiar faces that I see. Mr. Taru, it's good to see you. Our partner in some of the work that we do, we work with PG Industries. And my wife's best friend is also here. She's a serious entrepreneur. Rutendo, it's good to see you. Yes, I'm also into farming. We grow Mbambaira for export. And we also recently ventured into tobacco farming. So my partner in crime in that business is Dr. Samkange. It's good to see you, Doc. Thank you for coming. It was a surprise. You are supposed to be at the farm this morning. So it's quite a surprise. I'm so happy to see you, Dr. Samkange. My assignment this morning is very simple. My assignment is to encourage you with a few principles and nuggets which I believe are going to help you grow in your entrepreneurship journey as business people and professionals. So there are 4 groups of people or entrepreneurs that I believe are in here. The first group, I would call them aspiring entrepreneurs. An aspiring entrepreneur is someone who is actively looking for a business venture and working towards the goal of starting his or her own business. Do we have any aspiring entrepreneur this morning in here? Aspiring, there is no aspiring entrepreneur. Okay, and then the second group, startups. Your company is at its first stages of operations. Do we have any startups in here? Maybe you've been operating for the last 6 months, 7 months, you've recently come into business. We don't have startups. So we don't have aspiring, we don't have startups. And then the third group, SMEs, small and medium enterprises. Do we have SMEs in here? You can just show me by raising your hand. Thank you. And the fourth group that I'm going to address are established entrepreneurs. Your business has structures and systems in place. God forbid if you go into a coma this afternoon, the business will run as if you are there. Do we have any established entrepreneurs in here? Okay. All right. And the last group are corporate entrepreneurs. Corporate entrepreneur is a person that works on developing new ideas and innovation projects inside an existing organization as a professional in a senior leadership position such as MD, COO, or CEO. Do we have corporate entrepreneurs in here this afternoon? Mr. Taru is here, the COO of PG Industries. If you belong in any of these groups, you are in the right place. So today I'm going to speak to you on a topic I've entitled Entrepreneurship, Sustaining Growth and Remaining Competitive. Lessons from the hare and tortoise. There's a moral story that I believe most of us in here heard as we were growing up. Some of us heard this story as a bedtime story from our parents. Some of us heard this story Sengano from our grandparents. Some of us heard this story in kindergarten, in nursery school. In case you missed this story, I want you to pay close attention as I share the story. The story is going to be the foundation and basis of my presentation. So I would beg your indulgence as I share the story. The story is about the hare and the tortoise. Who has heard the story of the hare and the tortoise? So the story goes, once upon a time, one fine day, the hare was being a bit unkind and made fun of his friend tortoise for being slow. The hare laughed and said to the tortoise, "You are very slow, my friend. You are not going to go anywhere far in life." The tortoise did not take these words too well. The tortoise felt belittled and said to the hare, "Why don't we run a race? And you will find out who is the fastest between us." The hare thought this was highly amusing and giggled as he pictured himself beating the slow old tortoise to the race. Okay, your own agreed there. So they got their friend, the fox, to act as the judge. And the fox counted 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, off you go. Very quickly, the hare raised a head and was way off in the distance as the tortoise moved slowly along on his little legs, carrying the heavy shell on his back. The hare knew the tortoise was a very long way back and would take ages to catch up. So he thought he would have a little slip, and that would make the tortoise feel silly for challenging him, a hare, to a race at the end. So the plan was, when the hare feels or senses that the tortoise is coming close, the idea was he would then wake up and rush to the finish line. So now the tortoise just kept plodding slowly and steadily along. And as time went on, the tortoise passed the spot silently where the hare was sleeping. The tortoise just kept on going until he reached close to the finish line. The hare suddenly woke up, realizing that the tortoise had covered ground. And the tortoise crossed the line, and the fox declared the tortoise the winner of the race. My fellow entrepreneurs, this morning, the moral of the story is that it's not always the fastest who wins the race. There are some lessons that I'm going to extract from this story and hopefully inspire you and challenge you regardless of where you are in the entrepreneurship journey. This is a very fascinating story that is loaded with lessons that can help us as business people and as leaders and as professionals. In the context of my presentation, I am going to liken each and every one of us in here to either a hare or a tortoise. So if you are in here, you are either a hare or you are a tortoise. Just this morning. So during the course of my presentation, the tortoise is going to metaphorically represent two things. The tortoise is going to represent a startup business person. By startup, I'm referring to a new player in a specific sector, a player that is still finding his or her own field in the marketplace. For example, maybe your business is 6 months old, 5 months old, or a year old. Number two, the tortoise is also going to represent SMEs, small and medium enterprises. Many of us in here are SMEs. Secondly, during the course of my presentation, the hare is going to represent big companies or companies that are known to have capacity. This can be listed companies on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, your Masawara, your Insco, your Trafingura and all those other giants in the marketplace. So they are going to represent the hare. Are we together so far? Looking at the story of the hare and the tortoise, for us to be successful as entrepreneurs and for us to sustain growth and to remain competitive, number one, we have to be persistent. Somebody say persistence. The tortoise won the race because it was persistent. What is persistence? Persistence is continuing in an opinion or course of action in spite of any challenge, resistance, or opposition. As an entrepreneur, if you continue in any opinion or course of action, in spite of any challenge, resistance, or opposition that you will encounter in the marketplace, you will win that tender. You will win the race. Persistence is also the ability to stick with something at all costs. One man once said, a river cuts through a rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. Ladies and gentlemen, persistence produces results. The habit of persistence is the habit of victory. Initially, a few minutes after the folks had counted 1 to 5, it did not make sense for the tortoise to continue with the race because the hare had gone far ahead of it. But that did not deter it, that did not discourage it from keeping on with the race. Some of us SMEs in here, the moment you hear that a company such as Sakunda or Trafingura or Insco has also submitted its documents for the tender, in your mind you conclude that Aguirre has won the tender. And you don't follow through the process of applying for that tender. You don't follow through the process that is required for you to get that deal. If PG has also tendered, we need to do away with that mindset this morning. You must be persistent like this particular tortoise if you are going to achieve anything worthwhile in life. The Japanese have a proverb that I love. I actually have it framed in my office. The proverb says, money grows on the tree of persistence. That is a Japanese proverb. There is a parable that I love about a certain lady that is described as a persistent widow. Who knows that story of a persistent widow? It's a parable. This widow persistently brought her plea to a judge who did not grant her justice. The lady obviously knew that she did not stand a chance against the justice system of that day. But that did not stop her. That did not stop her from pursuing a case. And what is interesting about this story to demonstrate the power of persistence is that the judge eventually said to himself, even though I don't fear God or regard men, yet because this widow troubles me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me. Ladies and gentlemen, a river cuts through a rock not because of its power, but because of its persistence. I remember once listening to a testimony by the Econet founder. He was sharing that when he applied for a tender to operate a telecoms company in Botswana, number one, he was the last to submit his application. Number two, he was competing with bigger companies like MTN and Vodacom. And guess who got the license? Mascom, Masiwa Communications. Ralph Emerson once said, that which we persist in doing becomes easy to do. Not that the nature of the thing has changed, but that our power to do it has increased. Are you persistent? Persistence empowers you. The more persistent you are, the more strengthened and encouraged you become. The more persistent you are, the more you are likely going to succeed as an entrepreneur. So the first lesson we learn from the tortoise is persistence. Against all opposition and facts that are verified scientifically and physically, that a hare is faster than a tortoise, the tortoise still won the race. The same applies with you. Against all opposition and facts that are verified, that your competitor is bigger than you can still win the race. You can still get the contract. You can still get the tender, provided you are persistent. So number two, the second lesson we learned from this story is consistency. And my dear sister Precious did an amazing job last week on consistency. The tortoise managed to win the race not because it was fast, not because it was smart, but because it was consistent. In order for your business to scale and grow and for you to remain competitive, you have to be consistent in whatever you are doing. Are you consistent as a business person? Are you consistent as an organization? As a small business or startup business, if you remain consistent in what you are doing, you will win the race, though you may lack the speed like the tortoise. Be known to be consistent. Your customers will appreciate your consistency. If you are in here and you run a fuel service station, we don't want to come to your service station today to get fuel and there is no fuel. We come tomorrow, there is fuel. The next day, there is no fuel. The next day, there is fuel. The day that you have fuel, customers will naturally assume that there is no fuel. And you can even end up closing that business thinking it's not viable, simply because you lack consistency. Somebody say consistency. Consistency. If you run a restaurant, we don't want to come to your restaurant today and we are served with Malawi rice. Tomorrow, basmati. The following day, a cheap brand from India which tastes like manuchu and it's supposed to be rice. If you are going to be serving Mahatma, be consistent. And if there are inadequate or lack of supplies in the market, at least stick to 2 brands that you know are readily available on the market. Customers expect the services and products they receive from you to be consistent. Ladies and gentlemen, being consistent builds trust and improves efficiency. When you are consistent, you have a sense of accountability and direction that translates to progress. That is the power of being consistent. The reason why most of us in here will use an iPhone or a Samsung is because these 2 companies have been consistent in producing quality products for the last decades. Consistency is what transforms average into excellence. As the person sitting next to you, are you consistent? Though the tortoise, the small company, lacked speed, which we defined in this example as capacity in comparison to the big companies there, it won the race because it was consistent. Mr. Makwire, a lot of small companies complain that they don't get business in comparison to big companies. Usually they say the complaint is that it's because we are too small. That is why we are not getting business. To some extent, I beg to differ. Let me put it this way. Whenever there is a fight in the street between 2 dogs, it's not always the size of the dog in the fight that matters, but the size of the fight in the dog. It's not always the size of the dog in the fight that matters, but the size of the fight in the dog. That is what matters. If you remain consistent in whatever you are doing, you will win the race, you will gain the market share, this in spite of your size or the size of your competitor. I want you to say to us, rather, the SME that is seated next to you, what is the size of the fight inside of you in the marketplace as a company? As a company that delivers on time. Be known as a company that does not compromise on its standard. If you are in the business of manufacturing cleaning detergents, on your production line where you are supposed to use 10 liters of thinners, please don't cut corners and use 5 liters of thinners. The final product does not lie. It will sell you, it will expose you. Yes, you will win the transactions, but you will lose the relationships of those people that you have supplied. Let me tell you something about Rolls-Royce. Besides the fact that a lot of wealthy people don't watch a lot of TV, one of the reasons why they don't advertise much on television is because they've been consistent in producing quality products for the last 108 years. Word naturally spreads that Rolls-Royce is a good car. And I was reading an article sometime last year, 90% of people that buy a Rolls-Royce will share with their friends on their social media platform. So do they really need to advertise? Imagine 90%. And the amazing thing about Rolls-Royce is that, you can Google it, you know the subframe of a Rolls-Royce consists of more than 30 parts that are actually handmade. Whereas most vehicle manufacturers, similar parts would be made by machines and AI. But to this very day, most of those parts are still handmade. So can you compete with such a company? I read a quote the other day. Number one, we said you must be persistent, and number two, you must be consistent. I read a quote the other day that I found interesting. The quote read, "Being persistent may lead you to the door, but consistency will open the door." We have entrepreneurs and SMEs that are persistent, but not consistent. There's a problem there. You know the guys I'm talking about. They will chase you left, right, and center, Mr. Taru, for you to give them a contract or an order for them to supply PG Industries with that product. You are leaving work at 6, you find them by the door. Mr. Makwira, you arrive at the office in the morning, you see them in the car park. Who has ever dealt with such a persistent entrepreneur? Your SME. Because of their persistence, you give them the order, but they are not consistent. They don't deliver on time. They always have an excuse. You have to be consistent and you have to be persistent to make it in this journey. The third lesson we learned from the story of the hare and the tortoise is understand your limitations or weaknesses as an entrepreneur. The tortoise had an understanding of its limitations. It had an understanding of its limitations. The tortoise was aware that it was in competition with a player that was faster and smarter than it was. The tortoise was aware of that. If you are a small player in a game with big players, you need to have a clear understanding of your limitations. Because the tortoise understood this clearly, it did not relax or find time to sleep along the race like what most of us in here are doing. Wanakamba. Because the tortoise understood this clearly, it did not relax. Unfortunately, some of us sleep like we are competing with the dead and we expect to make it in the land of the living. Haikona kuda kurara hope sekunge uri kuita makwikwi newashakabvu uine tarisiro yekubudirira munyika yewapenyu. I use the word sleep metaphorically, meaning don't relax. Your company is only 2 years old. You are the only employee, yet you also want to sleep like the Delta Corporation. You don't open for business on weekends. On Fridays, you finish at 2 p.m. You don't take calls after 5 p.m. You can't afford to. Do me a favor and say to the SME seated next to you, don't make a demand if you're not on demand. If you are a tortoise, a small business, you should leverage on moments when the big companies are sleeping and cover ground. One of my first businesses was Safety Accessories. I used to supply high visibility reflective tape, chevrons, my key clients were trucking companies. Sometimes I would receive a call at 7 p.m. with a request to deliver a chevron at 5:30 a.m. in the morning because the truck has to go to Chirundo. I would move mountains to make it happen. My biggest competitor was, of course, Transef. The transport companies knew that they could not call Transef at 7 p.m. in the evening with a request to deliver a chevron at 5:30 a.m. Could they? Who remembers those days when Z-Therapy was on your case if you didn't have reflectors on your car? Those were the days. As a tortoise in the marketplace, I knew that during the day I could not compete with the Transef. Because of economies of scale, their products were cheaper than mine and their brand was more trusted and credible than mine. So I took advantage to cover ground when the air was sleeping. If you are a small business, identify the weaknesses of bigger companies in your field in relation to customer service and leverage on it. As a result, I became a preferred supplier. So even when it was day, the clients would still call me to deliver a product which sometimes could have even been cheaper at Transf. Why? Because I had served them once when the hair was sleeping. Know your limitations as an SME and then capitalize on the weaknesses of the hair. My business card at the time was written, we operate 24/7. I was not married at the time, so I could take a call at 2 a.m. because I had no wife to complain. So some of you SMEs that are still single, take advantage of that opportunity to make money. I actually paid my lobola from that business, a story from another day. Lesson number 4. Don't make noise when you are passing through the hair during a race while it is sleeping. Are we together so far? Yes. Remember, the hair ran ahead and thought to it catch up. So let me sleep. Whilst the hare was sleeping, the tortoise managed to catch up. When the tortoise caught up and arrived at the place the hare was sleeping, it did not alarm the hare. It silently passed so that it could cover ground whilst the hare was sleeping. The principle here is when you have a revelation or idea that you are using to gain ground in the marketplace, don't make noise. Protect your idea. If today you come up with an innovative idea that is a game changer, put structures and systems in place before you launch it. If you're a technology person and today you come up with an innovative idea of a smartphone battery that can last for 2 weeks without charging, don't go the organic route where you manufacture 100, you sell them, you make a profit, you go for 1,000. By the time you get to 1,000, the Chinese will be manufacturing 10 million. Be smart. Go and partner with iPhone. Go and partner with Samsung or with Huawei. Don't be selfish. Sometimes 5% of an elephant is better than 100% of a rat. If you are selfish, you will own 100% of an entity that is going nowhere. Don't be selfish. Do you know what? A lot of billionaires that most of you guys respect, they don't even own 100% of their companies. Elon Musk owns only 13% of Tesla. Only 13% of Tesla. The rest is owned by the likes of the Vagant Group, the likes of JP Morgan, and many other institutional investors. I want you to do me a favor again. Can you just politely say to the person seated next to you, listen to me first. You can still be the richest man or woman in the world with very little shares in your own company. Can you say that to the person seated next to you? Where is that 100% ownership mindset? Chinu changu mentality. My partners Elon with 13%, he's got the world on a standstill. If he sneezes, the world catches a cold. With 13, Jeff Bezos, the owner of Amazon, only owns 9.5% of Amazon. My brother is a chartered accountant. If we are using this pen here as an example, which part would you say is the 9.5%? Just that front part that writes. And yet he's ruling the world. Mark Zuckerberg only owns 26% of Facebook. Let me bring it closer to home for those of us that may not really be into these guys. My brother here will correct me if I'm wrong. Strive Masiwa only owns about 39.6% of Econet Wireless in Zimbabwe. 39 or 36% of Econet Wireless in Zimbabwe. The rest is owned by your old mutual, and I'm sure most of us in here at some point have had Econet shares. You see. Moving on, lesson number 5. Be focused on the goal. Be focused on the goal. The reason why the tortoise managed to win the race was because it was focused. I am of the view that along the way, tortoise met distractions. Walking through the woods, tortoise could have passed through very nice and juicy fruits that could have distracted it. In your journey as an entrepreneur, you are going to face distractions. Distractions can be as simple as buying an expensive car at the expense of investing in your factory or buying new equipment. Some of you SMEs in here, you don't really need a Mercedes-Benz right now. All you need is a good vehicle that can comfortably take you from point A to point B. Are we together? 2 years ago, I bought a car for my wife. It was a Nissan Juke, recent import. It was 11,000, and I had said to the guy, the car dealer, we want a Juke. And I was very clear, and for the next 3 weeks, we're very clear that we wanted a Juke. So the Juke arrived, and so then we went. And then what he said to me, Blaz, mkangowedzera ka 1,000 cheti mnokwanisa utora C class E. Nige mapinda mbenzi. Did I say I want a Mercedes? I want a Juke. Where is this mindset coming from? Don't buy things with money you don't have to impress people you don't like. Are we together, SMEs? I love my brother Arthur Marara. He was here last week. He once said, don't get broke trying to act rich. So, ladies and gentlemen, entrepreneurs this afternoon, you must surround yourself with assets, not liabilities. Say the person next to you, surround yourself with assets, not liabilities. Okay. Unproductive behavior and activities are distractions that will prevent you from getting to the finish line. So in order for you, tortoise, to get to the finish line before the hare, be careful of distractions. Some of the common distractions that will sabotage your entrepreneurial success, number 1, are listening to people. I'm sure when the tortoise was walking along, slowly but sure, there must have been someone who tried to discourage it by giving it facts. And some of these people actually meant well, because in reality, a hare is faster than a tortoise. Iwe tortoise, hausikoni roti. The hare has gone far ahead. Do you think you're going to catch up? When you started your accounting firm, I'm sure there must have been people that say to you, there is Ernst & Young, there is Deloitte & Touche. Had he listened to these people, would he have started? Had he listened to these people, would he be the successful firm he is today? People along the race must have told tortoise to give up. If the tortoise had listened to people who had no insight and revelation on its vision, it would not have made it to the finish line. Number 2, a common distraction that sabotages entrepreneurial success is fear. If the tortoise had feared the hare, it was never going to attempt to run the race. I don't care who your competitor is in your industry. Do not fear. It's not about the size of the dog in the fight that matters, but the size of the fight in the dog. Number 6, this is for the hare. Some of you in here, you run big businesses. In the context of my presentation, you are a hare. So I don't want to be enemies with you at the end of my presentation and sound as if I was only biased towards Wanakamba. So I also need to give you something that will help you. So if you're a tortoise, you should also listen very careful, because one day you are going to be a hare. Lesson number 6, pride comes before a fall. Usually when we start our companies, we are so humble, but As our businesses grow, Sharon, the challenge that comes with growth at times is pride. What caused the hare to sleep was pride. Because it thought to itself, who is tortoise? Tortoise will never catch up with me. Let me sleep so that at the end of the race, I will not only boast of beating him, but of also sleeping along the race. When your organization grows and you become a hare in your industry, remain humble, don't relax, don't sleep. Your comfort zone is actually your danger zone. Do not underestimate the small companies in your field who are not as fast as you, who are not as well resourced as you, who are not as well positioned as you. Whoever thought that one day there would be a company bigger than Doves? In the 90s, whoever thought that there would be a company one day bigger than Doves? When Nyaradzo started, it was a tortoise being run by a former Old Mutual financial consultant, Philip Mataranyika. I believe he was not even in senior management at Old Mutual. What was a tortoise yesterday overtook the hare. 3 weeks ago, I was in the UK. When I went to Birmingham, I passed through one of their operations there, massive. Thousands of Zimbabweans subscribing to their plans for repatriation and all of that. How did this happen? Somewhere along the way, somewhere along the race, Doves decided to sleep. They did not invest in growth and innovation. They remained rigid because they thought tortoise Nyaradzo is too far to catch up. What did Nyaradzo do? Nyaradzo changed the way that we look at funerals. They came to us and introduced themselves to us as what? Sawira Mkuru. They came with a six-pack that covers one's entire family, and you can even include your mother and father-in-law in there. Social capital. They came and they said, we just want you to focus on mourning your dead relative. We'll cook and we'll provide the catering service. We'll even bring chairs and tents and toilet so that Mungo concentrate whilst we do everything. Game changer. Why wasn't Doves doing that? Today, Nyaradzo is a force to reckon. If you are running a big organization, don't sleep. Continue to innovate and think outside the box. Talking about thinking outside the box, Nyaradzo has a very strong presence on social media, on various platforms, especially people's Facebook pages. We've seen that. You know, they have a very strong presence now, which is unusual considering their line of business. You know, if you go to the Nyaradzo Facebook page, you hardly see them advertising coffins. This one will take you straight to heaven. You hardly see them advertising their mortuaries. Our mortuaries are the coolest in town. Even when there is no Zesa, we'll make sure you're cool. So when you die, choose Nyaradzo. You hardly see such kind of adverts. Why are they not doing so? Even though it's their core business, they are very smart. They know that people in general don't want to be reminded that they are going to die. They are very smart. So I would like to think, this is just me thinking, this is not a real story. This is just me thinking, Ms. Makwere. I would like to think the Nyaradzo management sat down and said, guys, how do we remain strong on social media without offending people? Because our products, we can't really post them. How do we do it? But how do we remain relevant? So they did a SWOT analysis of the Nyaradzo group. And one of the things probably they discovered is that they are amongst one of the most influential and biggest companies in the country. And so someone very smart in that meeting must have said, I'm just giving you an example on how to be innovative. So probably someone in that meeting said, colleagues, I have an idea. As he said or she said, people People in general want to be associated with an organization as big as us. So, whenever someone is given an award, let us celebrate them on our platform. So they do their homework and they know that Sharon has 25,000 followers on Facebook. They also know that Sharon respects them as a brand. So when Sharon is awarded by the CEO's network and they post on their page, what is Sharon going to do? She's going to share that post, and 25,000 people free of charge get to see Nyaradzo Service, Strength and Solutions. Their recent victim was Kenya's Mafugidze, the new CEO, chairman of POSB. He also shared on his platform. That's being innovative. 25,000 people instantly are reminded. For you to sustain growth and to remain competitive, you have to be creative. You don't have an excuse. They are selling a product which is very sensitive to most of us, but they are one of the most visible on social media, especially on Facebook. Why? Because they are creative. Now ask the person seated next to you, what's your excuse? Utore na kune product singa offende wanu. Is one of the biggest companies in the world, but the amount of money they are spending, say, on R&D, research and development, is alarming. In 2023, Google spent close to $45 billion just on research and development. Musianwa Private Limited, 300 zig on R&D. You don't even invest in training your staff. For you to take your staff on a retreat or on a team building exercise in Chinoi for the weekend, it's a waste of money. But you don't see the value in the long run. You know, once upon a time, a CEO was having a conversation with the CFO. The CEO was of the view that they invest an X amount of money in training the staff. But the CFO thought it was a lot of money. You know how CFOs, Mr. Makwire, you know these guys. And so, the CFO said to the CEO, investing so much money, say, in training, what if these people leave us? And you know what the CEO said? What if they don't? We must invest in training the people that are working for us. We must invest in research and development. In conclusion, because of our time, allow me just to say a few parting words to each of the groups that I referred to earlier. My parting words to those of you that are aspiring entrepreneurs, in case you came in during the presentation and you're an aspiring entrepreneur, go out there and start that business. Don't fear the so-called big dogs in the industry. You have something better and greater to offer. I was so inspired last week at the US Embassy, just chatting next to someone in the queue, and I was saying, so what's your plan on this trip to the US? And he was saying he wants to start his own brand here, a fast food brand. So the trip is just to go and see things that are being done in the fast food industry that are not being done here. I was amazed. I was really inspired by that guy. Probably that trip is going to cost him $6,000-$7,000 just to see what his slides are not doing that will work in Zimbabwe. What is Wales Chicken Inn not doing that can work in Zimbabwe? So, aspiring entrepreneurs, there is room for you in the market to grow and to become something. We all know the story of Goliath. The story of Goliath, right? When David saw Goliath, he did not see a giant too big to fight. He saw a giant too big to miss. What do you see? Is my question to you this morning. What do you see Number 2, startup entrepreneurs. If you're a startup entrepreneur, 5% of an elephant is better than 100% of a rat. Don't be afraid to partner with like-minded people that have capacity to take your vision further. Can I kindly ask the legal practitioners that are here to stand so that you can get their business card after, so that they can help you structure your partnership agreements. If there's any legal practitioner here, it's an opportunity for you to raise your hand or to stand up so that people can see you. Can you see them? Please look at them. They can help you structure partnership agreements and arrangements that will not shortchange you. Is that not so, our legal practitioners? Should they fear partnerships? So you shouldn't fear partnerships. If you want to go fast in life, go alone. If you want to go further, go together. If you want to go fast, if you want to go further, go together. Get rid of that chin changu mentality, but going nowhere. The third group is a crash to a close. SMEs, this is my counsel to you. Your homework when you leave this place is to go and to begin to think, what are the weaknesses of the bigger players in my field and how can I fill in the gaps? I want you to start thinking like that. SMEs, do not miss these networking events and other similar networking events in the city. It's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. Are we together? Whilst I'm in this neighborhood, let me also just give a small piece of advice to my sister entrepreneurs that are in here, especially the young ones. Lady entrepreneurs, it's not every man that you are going to meet at a reception area somewhere who is going to attempt to strike a conversation with you, who is interested in you in that other way. Are we together? Because you are losing a lot of opportunities because you assume. Any man that attempts to have a conversation with you, even though you are married, should be innocent until proven guilty. Give them an opportunity to hear what they have to say. When you see that they are crossing certain borders or boundaries, then you put a barrier. Why am I saying so? Maybe you are in the business of manufacturing doi. You are coming from Baremsika to buy your peanut, to buy your nuts, and you're seated in a combi, and the guy seated next to you attempts to have a conversation with you. Obviously, they are going to start saying, Naskuruku Pisaka sister. They are going to say, and you close him off. For all you know, he's the chief buyer at Pick n Pay. So if you are seated next to a young lady, tell them, all men should be innocent until proven guilty from now on. Ladies who are guilty, can you show by raising your hand? Okay, to those of you that are spiritual, is God only going to use men to elevate you, women to elevate you? Is he only going to use women? So there could be men that can help you in your journey. And talking about networking, don't be in a habit of just collecting business cards, SMEs. Don't just be in a habit of just collecting business cards. My mentor taught me something 3 years ago that changed my life. I have a business card holder at my home, at my house. And so whenever you give me your card, I'll put it in the business card holder, and there's a number attached to that business card that I put there. And I also have a separate file on my laptop where I write your name, where we met, and what we discussed. Even if I pick a card at some reception area, I'll just write, picked this at a reception at Avenues Clinic. So what that means, advocate, I can account for every business card I have received in the last 3 years. So don't just be in a habit of collecting business cards. Can you ask the person next to you, can you account for every business card you have? Okay. Number 4, to the established entrepreneurs, do not relax. Continue to be innovative. There is a tortoise out there that is making its way to the finish line. And lastly, to the corporate entrepreneur, some of us, unfortunately, are not going to be founders of businesses. Be comfortable in that space. If you feel like I'm called to manage someone else's businesses, you can still do very well. We don't encourage corporate entrepreneurs very much in Africa because of the remuneration. Yes, it's okay, but you know the CEO of companies like BP, they get as much as $15 million per year, which is more than what most companies that are listed here on the stock exchange would get. So they are comfortable if I die as a corporate entrepreneur. So be comfortable in that space if you feel I'm not called to be a founder. Why am I saying so? We have seen a trend of so many successful CEOs that resign to start their own companies, and those companies are a flop. Who can attest to that? We have seen that. Great CEOs did big things. Start a company, becomes a flop. And so if you're a corporate entrepreneur, be comfortable. I'm not discouraging you to start a business. If you are going to start a business, appoint a board that you are accountable to, that has the power to even fire you in your own organization. Don't appoint your bururus that you watch soccer with that will just say, no, it's okay. Appoint people that will challenge you, that will inspire you, that will drive you in your own organization. Perhaps the reason why you did so well as a CEO was because of those accountability structures. But now you feel, chinu changu, I don't need to account to anyone. So ladies and gentlemen, let us start thinking outside the box. Be innovative. Take advantage of the weaknesses of the bigger companies in your field in relation to customer experience, and take advantage of it. If they start work at 9 a.m., you start work at 8. If they close at 4, you close at 5. If they don't take orders after 5, there are thousands of graduates that recently graduated last week. All those young people are looking for jobs. You can employ them and say, I'll give you $100 a month for you to be taking calls between 5 and 11 in the evenings from the comfort of your home. Now imagine you add that to your flyer that we take orders even after 5, but delivery is the next day, and you're employing a recent graduate to be taking orders who you would have schooled on your product, service, and offering. People will be thrilled by that. Do you know, I opened an account with Bank ABC, with Bank ABC simply because they had announced their operating hours. And you know, the funny thing is to think of it, I have actually never gone for their service after hours, but look at the reason why I opened. Why? Because they went the extra mile. So be innovative, be persistent, and be consistent in whatever you are doing. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave it here for today because of time. Thank you.
When I came here, I think you agree with me that this is a very moving presentation full of real life demonstrations. Albert, yesterday I was in a meeting, I will not mention where, but because of the composition of my delegation, we're reminded of sleeping giants. Yeah, now that we've said it, we've taken note. Please, let's be persistent, let's be consistent, let's understand our limitations, let's not get carried away, let's not sleep on the way, don't make noise to awaken the sleeping giant. Let the sleeping giant sleep while you pass by so that you can get to the crossing line. Be focused, don't fear. Pride becomes our own downfall. We need to be creative, we need to invest in research and development. Thank you very much, Albert. Another round of applause for this moving presentation. Now we'll take questions. Those that have got burning questions, it's your time. Let's take questions as we move towards the finishing line. Yes.
Thanks. So I learned the story about the tortoise. And we are such a vulnerable tortoise in our own right because we're in a tech space. I've had a number of products taken by bigger companies. But the question now comes, I want to be known to get business, yet I need to be subtle. How do we play around that balance to say you want to keep your innovation, but you also want to market?
Okay. Wow. The idea of being subtle was on the development stages of your app, when you're still developing it before it's out there. Because sometimes we make noise, even in events like this, you're sharing with him, I'm developing this app, that we have such and such a feature, because you're so excited. So you need to be subtle on these stages. Yeah, but when it now comes to where you've now launched the app or you've launched the idea, sometimes it's wiser to also protect your idea. Who knows ARIPO? The Africa Regional Intellectual Property Organization. If you are a serious entrepreneur, you should know about them. So it's also important to patent and to protect your idea in that light. So the idea of being subtle was on the initial stages. Yes, I hope I've answered you, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? Let's pass on the mic. Yes.
Thank you so much, for the presentation. I just want to comment on the issue that is I have actually seen a lot of people with brilliant ideas crying after their ideas have been stolen by big corporates or by persons they want to partner with. So I'm happy you brought the issue of patenting your idea. It's quite important. Then there might be a situation where you have an idea, you are still thinking around it, it's not yet due to register it with ARIPO or another organization as a partner. You may discuss with your colleagues, but make sure that you do have a non-disclosure agreement. So that it's actually an agreement which you can enforce to say, I shared an idea with you, you took it out and you shared with other colleagues. So just protect yourselves from that. There is a colleague I was dealing with before the coming in of this, we call it Maisha Youth. We were discussing the idea, then some few years later, they came to my office crying that my idea was stolen by a big corporate. What did you do? He went there with his idea was taken away. So I think it's important to protect those ideas. So that's another way that you can do. Before at the infancy of the idea, you sign a non-disclosure agreement with your partners.
We've got a question here. Okay, you can pass it there and then we'll come here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mine is not a question, it's just a comment over the presentations as well. My company, I started in 1997. And I'm almost 25, 30 years going on with Romel, the alternative medicine. And I'm realizing that I'm now towards the end of my, the sun is setting upon me age-wise. I'm 68 years old. So I need discipleship to remain relevant at the marketplace. We have actually engaged into the partnership that we are talking about. We have a younger company, which is 2 years old, which is where Ashley is coming from. I'm not afraid to partner with a company known as Eden Gardens. Okay. okay? They do similar things that I've been doing for the past 30 years. They are into herbal farming. I'm also a farmer. I have a farm in Banket. They are into horticulture. They are into training of nurses' aides, and I've been training my herbal practitioners. So I identified this company just last week. We are now into partnership. I'm not afraid of partnering with them because I feel I need discipleship. I need all the knowledge that I've acquired. I need my legacy. I need to live on long after we passed on from the planet so that I don't die with my ideas. I don't die with my entrepreneurship skills and knowledge. So I'm passing it on. Her boss is 29 years old. They are barely 2 years old on the marketplace. But I can see they're running with it. And I feel there's a lot of energy. This is why I'm partnering with them. And I'll need those lawyers maybe to draft some partnership agreement with them. So don't be afraid to partner. TM Pick and Pay is partnering with Thomas Mikkels was here the longest, we all know, and Pick and Pay there to partner so that they remain a brand. They remain on the stock exchange. I can even sell my company and my workers at the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange or the London Stock Exchange or the New York Stock Exchange. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that you are raising a very important aspect. I remember one guy so passionately talking about the need to pass on to ensure that your organization does not die with you or your idea doesn't die with you. You need to pass it on to the younger generation so that there's continuity. And this guy declared that if you don't pass the information that you have and you die, I'll just come and bury your grave. You know, that's how passionate he was. So I think you're raising a very critical question that we all need to do while we are running our businesses. Yes, ma'am.
Chinotaure voisi rangu aripo pamusoro iyi patina nevamwe tisatye tisati tambosvika kwaripo handei padeeds office apo haubhadhari kana maUS uchida kuchengetedza uvepo wezvezvinhu zvaunoita. Saka inini ndiri kuvatsvaga vakadaro, handisi kutya hozi zvinhu zvangu ndakagadzirisa. Ndakaenda padeeds office zoti ndizive kwaripo, ndakabva nepadeeds. Vakakugadzira zvavanenge vakugadzirira, chero mukada kundibira unozozviona mapasi pedesk. Handitye, uyai kuna gogo. Even mune vanoda kutrenwa, gogo vakasununguka because zviripo. Handingarambe ndichiti ndezvangu. Uyeti kune vana vadiki vari kukura, izvozvi vana vakazara panze apa nemadrugs. Vana Albert pamunenge muchiuya kunavo vamakadzidza navo, potai muchitaura navo. Ndakazvitaura svondo rakapera. Vana baba tinouya pano, ndini ndiri pano, ina handisina mwana wandogara naye, ndogara nemutara wangu. Vana baba vane vana chero vazukuru, uyai navo vanzwe vamwe vavo vechidiki vachitaura. Vana amai musanyare kuti muzukuru wangu ane mhororodzi handifambi naye. Mama vauya nemwana kuratidza kuti vari kuda kuti vana vakure. Isusu tinogeza touya pano tosiya vamwe. Ngapakudzwe nzvimbo vana vauye. Albert ndikutaura izvo unozviziva, navo vakadzidza navo varimo muBraeside, vamwe zvidhakwa, asi iwe nhasi uri Albert ari kuita zvinonakidza. Saka musatye kusheya maideas muchiti vanozotitorera. Vachikutorera chii? Ndakapiwawo nevamwe kuti ndive nazvo nhasi. Mazvita henyu.
Any other questions, comments as we are heading towards the close? Okay, I think silence means contentment. Okay.
I just wanted to emphasize learning from that side. Okay, so I just want to share and emphasize on the issue of partnerships. But what is important in any partnership is to ensure that when you enter into a partnership in business, the first step is to ensure that you have solid contracts of partnership. Your agreement should capture every other term that that when it comes to agreements, number one, we don't want to pay lawyers to do the job. So what we end up doing is we draft our own agreements with our partners. In fact, it's the partner who drafts, maybe through his lawyer or himself drafts. And I receive that draft and I'll just sign. I don't even have time to read through. I'm excited I found a partner. But I'm not also considering potential risk involved in the partnership. Because in every partnership there are also risks. So whilst we encourage partnerships, we also encourage that let's put our houses in order in time. Don't wait until you have a dispute. Then you come to a lawyer and say, this is the agreement. Then the lawyer will tell you, oh, this agreement, who drafted it? Why didn't you go to a lawyer? Just spend a few bucks, go to a lawyer to check if the agreement is in order. She will tell you that, she's my partner, Emmanuel. She will tell you that there was a time that herself and other business partners that she had wanted to almost enter into a partnership with this businessman who was offering 3 million, something like that. And when they asked me to go and just assist with an assessment, one meeting was enough for me to tell them as a lawyer that you are being duped. This is not a genuine partnership. This person is taking over the number. Your business is for you. Don't agree to these terms. So you may not be able to interpret some of these terms and conditions that you are going to be presented by the prospective partners. So it's necessary to ensure. I've dealt with quite a number of business people who do some agreements on their own. When they present to us in a dispute, we then tell them, this person knew what he was doing and you did not know. If only you came in time, we would have prevented all this. That is all I can say.
Thank you. Another? I think at this juncture, it leaves us with doing the closing ceremony. Just to thank you once again, Albert, for coming through. Very thrilled with your presentation, very motivational. I think all of us will got a take home in terms of the presentation that we got from Albert this morning. I just want to read once again Albert's short profile. Technology is getting the better of me, sorry about that. I learned a lot from the presentation, Albert, and I think you've got a challenge really, like Mother said, that you need to talk to your age group and the younger people to motivate them to get out of the streets and drugs. So ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause once again to Albert Mapfumo, founder, COO of Tonia Consultants, business consultant, international motivation and leadership speaker, award-winning author, paid board member. Please let's assist me in giving a sending off round of appreciation for the presentation. Thank you, Albert. I think breakfast will be served. We'll continue networking. As a collaborator in bringing you this discussion is the Indigenous Advisory Practitioners Association of Zimbabwe. We would want to thank you for coming to this session and to look forward to having you on board as members. We've got exciting products that we're offering. One of them is the skilled retired corps of Zimbabwe, where we believe that your life does not end after retirement. You then come on and share your wisdom and maturity with the younger and more agile Zimbabweans, and then together we package a program to develop this country. Thanks once again to the Chamber of SMEs for collaborating and bringing you this event. Until we meet again next week, we wish you all a very good weekend ahead. Thank you.